1. The Year Without a Summer, 1816, a planetary pandemic of frost and famine. To understand the cataclysm of 1816, one must first journey to the Dutch East Indies, modern-day Indonesia, a year earlier. On the evening of April 5, 1815, the volcano Mount Tambora, which had been rumbling ominously for days, began its final apocalyptic act. It wasn't a single eruption but a series of colossal explosions that peaked on April 10th. This was not merely an eruption. It was the most violent volcanic event in recorded human history, rated a 7 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, a supercolossal eruption, an order of magnitude greater than the more famous Krakatoa eruption of 1883. The numbers are staggering. The explosion was heard over 1,200 miles away, with commanders on Sumatra Island believing the distant booms to be cannon fire from nearby ships. The volcano ejected an estimated 36 cubic miles, 150 cubic kilometers, of rock, ash, and pumice into the atmosphere. The entire top of the mountain was obliterated, reducing Tambora's height by over 4,000 feet. Pyroclastic flows, superheated avalanches of gas, rock, and ash, raced down the mountain slopes at hundreds of miles per hour, obliterating the kingdom of Tambora and instantly killing an estimated 12,000 people. The ensuing tsunamis, famine, and disease raised the final death toll in the immediate region to approximately 71,000. But the true global impact was yet to come. The eruption injected immense quantities of sulfur dioxide gas, so superscript 2, high into the stratosphere. There, it transformed into a haze of sulfate aerosols, a microscopic curtain of reflective particles that began to encircle the globe. This aerosol veil acted like a one-way mirror. It allowed incoming solar radiation from the sun to pass through, but it trapped and reflected a significant portion of it back into space, preventing the Earth's surface from warming. By 1816, this volcanic shroud was fully in place. The effects, particularly across the northern hemisphere, were devastating and bizarre. North America, in the United States, then a young nation still finding its footing, the weather became a source of terror and confusion. The spring of 1816 seemed normal at first, but a cold snap in May destroyed most of the planted crops from New England to Virginia. Farmers replanted, only to see frost return in June. In Salem, Massachusetts, a temperature of 30 degrees Fahrenheit minus 1 degree Celsius was recorded on June 9th. On July 4th, Independence Day celebrations in Pennsylvania were held in rooms with fires lit as temperatures struggled to reach 46 degrees Fahrenheit 8 degrees Celsius. In upstate New York and Vermont, snowfalls in June and July were widespread with accumula. The cultural legacy, the birth of monsters. This is where the history moves from the meteorological to the literary, and where a global disaster inadvertently sparked a revolution in art. In that wet, ungenial summer of 1816, a group of literary luminaries found themselves trapped indoors at the Villa Diodati by Lake Geneva in Switzerland. The group included the celebrated poet Lord Byron, his personal physician John William Polidori, the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, and his soon-to-be wife, the 18-year-old Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, later Mary Shelley. With the weather too dismal for outdoor pursuits, Byron proposed a challenge to his guests. They would each write a ghost story. The atmosphere inside the villa was as charged as the one outside. Their conversations were filled with talks of galvanism, the use of electric currents to stimulate muscle movement in dead tissue, scientific experiments, and the nature of life itself. From this crucible of cold and creativity, two foundational works of Gothic horror emerged. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus. Inspired by a waking dream, Mary conceived the story of Victor Frankenstein and his monstrous creation. The book, published in 1818, is far more than a simple horror tale. It is a profound meditation on ambition, responsibility, alienation, and the dangerous intersection of science and nature. Themes directly reflecting a world that felt like it had been upended by uncontrollable natural forces. John Polidori's The Vampire. While Byron wrote a fragment of a story, it was his doctor, Polidori, who took the idea of a charismatic, aristocratic vampire and fleshed it out. His story, featuring Lord Ruthven, is the first true vampire story in English literature and the direct progenitor of Bram Stoker's Dracula and the entire vampire genre that persists to this day. 2. The Great Emu War, Australia's feudal campaign against birds. The Emu War of 1932 is often cited as a hilarious example of military absurdity, but its roots are deeply embedded in the hardscrabble reality of post-World War I Australia. After the Great War, the Australian government, eager to settle and develop its vast interior, offered land grants and subsidies to thousands of returned soldiers. These soldier settlers, or diggers, were given plots of land in Western Australia, often marginal and arid, and encouraged to take up wheat farming. It was a tough life, made infinitely tougher by the Great Depression, which drove commodity prices through the floor. As if economic hardship and difficult land weren't enough, the farmers faced another, more unexpected foe: the emu. The emu, Dromaeus novahollandii, is a flightless bird standing nearly 6 feet tall, fast, capable of running 30 miles per hour, sturdy, and highly nomadic. The end of the war and the expansion of farming had disrupted their traditional migration routes. Furthermore, the farmers had helpfully created new water sources for their livestock, which the emus found ideal. A drought in the interior in 1932 drove an estimated 20,000 emus directly into the fertile wheat-growing areas around Campion and Walgullen. To the farmers, the large, destructive birds were invaders. They moved in massive flocks, devouring crops and breaking down fences, allowing rabbits and other pests to further ravage the land. A single emu can eat vast quantities of wheat. The farmers, already on the brink of financial ruin, saw their livelihoods literally being eaten before their eyes. After failed attempts to scare the birds off and appeals to the state government for help, a delegation of ex-soldiers went directly to the Federal Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce. Pearce, himself a former soldier, was sympathetic. He saw it as a way to support the veteran community and perhaps even generate some positive press for the military. EAG. After 6 days of farcical combat, Major Meredith reported that 2,500 rounds of ammunition had been expended for an official tally of 200 to 300 emus killed, though some historians believe the number was likely much lower. The operation was a public relations disaster. Newspapers, particularly in Britain, mocked the Australian military's efforts. Facing ridicule and seeing the lack of progress, Minister Pearce ordered a withdrawal. The farmers, still desperate, pleaded for the military to return. Surprisingly, Pearce relented and Major Meredith was sent back into the field later that November. The second campaign was slightly more successful, utilizing more ambush tactics, but it was still a far cry from the decisive victory hoped for. By December, Meredith was recalled for good. In his final report, he claimed his men had killed 986 emus with 9,860 rounds of ammunition, a kill rate of exactly 10 rounds per bird. He rather admiringly noted the emu's resilience, stating, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks." The government ultimately refused further military assistance. Instead, it went back to the solution that had been proposed all along, putting a bounty on emus, which proved far more effective and less embarrassing. The Emu War stands as a timeless lesson in the hubris of attempting to impose a military solution on an ecological problem, and a hilarious testament to the fact that nature, in the form of a seemingly silly bird, often has the last laugh. 3. The Dancing Plague of 1518, a city possessed by rhythm. The event begins with a single woman. In July 1518, in the free imperial city of Strasbourg, now in France, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, a Frau Trophia or Trophia, stepped into the street and began to dance. This anecdote does more than just provide a chuckle. It offers a rare, unvarnished glimpse into the private character of a public man. The profane parrot shatters the polished marble statue of President Jackson and reveals Old Hickory, a rough-hewn, frontier soldier who was famously blunt, temperamental, and prone to fits of anger. It confirms the stories of his fiery personality in a way no official document ever could. It reminds us that behind every historical figure, no matter how grand or terrible, was a living, breathing human being with quirks, flaws, and a private life that often contrasted sharply with their public persona. The bird, in its innocent mimicry, told a truth about Andrew Jackson that no biographer could ever capture with quite the same authenticity. Conclusion: the vitality of the forgotten. These stories, the volcano that birthed monsters, the army defeated by birds, the city that danced itself to death, the wave of molasses, the war over a pig, and the president's cursing bird, are not just amusing footnotes. They are essential to a full understanding of history. They teach us about context. The Emu War cannot be understood without the plight of World War I veterans, just as the dancing plague is inseparable from the famine and disease of early 16th century Europe. They reveal the unintended consequences of events. Who could have predicted that an Indonesian volcano would lead to the creation of Frankenstein's monster in Switzerland? They showcase human folly in all its glorious absurdity, from machine guns aimed at emus to the belief that building a stage would cure a dancing mania. Most importantly, these forgotten facts restore humanity to the past. They remind us that people in every era have faced the bizarre, the inexplicable, and the absurd. They have laughed, they have been terrified, and they have persevered through events that seem too strange to be real. By seeking out these hidden stories, we do more than just collect trivia. We connect.